Welcome back to Co-op Radio 102.7 FM CFRO. This is Monday Brown Bagger. Again, I'll be archiving this on my website of www.reginaldangusargue.com. My name is Reginald Angus Argue. I'd like to continue on with our next guest. And before we do that, I just want to tell a listening audience that the song you were listening to is done by Pink. It's called Dear Mr. President. Every time I hear it, there seems to be an awful lot of dust in the air because I'm just thinking all the different young soldiers that have lost their lives in the illegal wars over in Afghanistan and Iraq at this time. Now, with that said, my next guest is the author of Daybreak, Undoing the Imperial Presidency and Forming a More Perfect Union, and he's co-founder of the warisacrime.org, formerly known as afterdowningstreet.org. With that said, I'd like to introduce David Swanson.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for coming on there, David. I've looked through your different articles, and it's very impressive. The first question I want to ask you, I think many people in the world, and even probably people in the United States, are thinking, what type of message do you feel that has been sent out to everyone with Clinton almost being impeached over his, misinforming the people and his extramarital affairs in the White House compared to Bush administration's 935 lies leading up to the Iraq War, which has cost trillions of dollars and millions of lives, along with destroying the economies in Iraq and the United States, just to name a few things?
Well, Clinton was impeached, but he was acquitted in the Senate just very narrowly. And I have good friends who are responsible and serious people who thought that, in fact, Clinton should have been convicted since he lied under oath and so forth. And you can certainly make a case for that. But that's holding presidents to a remarkable standard. I thought that Clinton should have been impeached for some of his more serious crimes, including war crimes in Yugoslavia and so forth. But what he was attacked for was a scandal that was generated by an incredibly costly and pointless investigation. And as you note, in comparison to the crimes and abuses of some other administrations that have been passed over, it was absolutely an outrage, and I actually think it's counterproductive and destructive for us to look into the personal and sexual lives of public figures. I think it's none of our business and should have nothing to do with politics, and so I had a lot of problems with what the Congress did with Clinton. But that being said, there's hardly a crime that Bush and Cheney engaged in that President Obama is not engaging in at the same level or worse. And there is absolutely no talk of impeaching President Obama, at least for any serious grounds. And there was a massive movement to impeach Bush. We had a majority of the public in support of it. We had articles of impeachment introduced. We had intense lobbying efforts. We just couldn't get any action out of the United States Congress.
Yeah, and I'm also, I support what you're just saying because, there's many crimes that the Clinton administration was guilty of. We have to remember at the same time Waco and other instances where, action was taken out against the American people. So it's same done with Bush, in regards to an awful lot of memos he passed. But with that said, how much damage do you feel that the Bush administration, who once said that the U.S. Constitution is a G.D. damn piece of paper, how much damage do you think he's done to the U.S. Constitution? And the question is, can the American people ever repair it?
Well, I don't know if he actually made that remark. It comes from one source that has not proved reliable, but it certainly characterizes his attitude and that of many other people in Washington at that time and before and since. We had our current president some months back stand in front of the Constitution in the National Archives and tell us we would no longer have habeas corpus. We would formalize a policy developed by Bush of locking people up without any charge, and we have done so. The damage done by any presidential administration with the complicity of the Congress and the people and the media and the states and so forth it can be incredibly damaging. But what long-term damage it does is determined primarily by the administration and the Congress that comes next. And we could have had the president who came after Bush undo his abuses and prosecute his crimes and put people in prison and deter the repetition of those behaviors and really treat Bush and Cheney as an aberration, which is how a lot of people, at least people loyal to the Democratic Party, still see them. Or we could have had what we ended up getting, and that was someone who comes in after Bush and Cheney and really formalizes and cements in place as official policy many of the crimes and abuses that they creatively came up with, which is incredibly damaging because the history through the past couple of centuries is one where when one president develops a new power and the next administration continues it unchallenged, the Supreme Court from then on treats that as now a new presidential power.
And also, at this time, I noticed one of your articles that you're writing about 46 congressional candidates opposing the war spending. Could you tell us a little bit about what this war spending bill is and how it's going to be used in the Afghanistan war?
Well, we're now at 50. 4 more have come in since this morning. I'm collecting a list of candidates for Congress this year who are campaigning as part of their platform that they oppose any more spending on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we have lots of national organizations signed on, about 18 of those, and 50 candidates, fairly evenly split 3 ways between Democrats, Libertarians, and Greens, with a few independents thrown in. Not a single Republican yet, but we're trying. And we're going to build that list, which is at warisacrime.org, as one tool for pressuring our current Congress, because the polls show that a majority of Americans don't want this war in Afghanistan at all, much less escalating it. And here comes a bill through Congress to put $33.5 billion into escalating, sending more troops into Afghanistan against the will of the American people, the Afghan people, the law, and the wisdom of the experts in the military itself, and yet it looks like this is going to go through. There are a couple of ways it could run into trouble. One is that there's a Republican senator, Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, who has said he will filibuster, not because he objects to war, but because he objects to spending money outside the budget with these phony so-called emergency supplemental spending bills. If we could cut spending somewhere else, including waste in the Pentagon, he would be happy to pay for the war. He just doesn't want it done off the books, cheating the budget. The other place it could run into trouble is in the House, because all the Republicans might vote no. Not because they object to the war or spending money, but because they object to good things that might be put into the bill along with the war. So if there's significant money for U.S. teachers in schools to avoid laying them off, and Republicans all vote no because of that, and they're happy to do that and ignore all the nonsense about you're not supporting the troops and so forth that always scares the Democrats, well, then we only need 39 or 40 Democrats to vote no to stop the bill. And then, of course, pass the good things, the school funding and everything else separately without the war funding. And there is a distinct possibility of making that happen. So people should be phoning their representatives in the House and demanding that they vote no on another $33 billion to escalate an unpopular war, and not just demanding it and not just expressing disappointment or concern, but promising them that you will vote against them in November if they keep voting all of our money for wars, because any other issue that you care about isn't going to go anywhere if all of the money goes into the wars.